You're now starting to scale towards like a sales-led motion. Would love to learn about what that transition period has looked like for you, and if you have any advice for companies or folks that are maybe going through something in a similar capacity.
It's hard being the founder who is the salesperson, who does sales, needing to start letting go of more of that, right? At about 2 million in ARR, I decided that it's time to start scaling it. And so that's the process that we're in right now. We've recently hired 2 senior account executives at RepVue over the last few months. They're experienced of what they do and experienced of the products that they sell, and we sell similar products. And so we're getting them trained up on everything RepVue, but that's probably later than some because I'm very comfortable. I'm always comfortable doing it. It's just one person that's also the CEO wouldn't be able to grow the business probably as fast as we need without building out that team. So our investors were very happy about us, building out and scaling a sales team.
All right, folks. Today we have a very special guest. We have Ryan Walsh, the founder and CEO of RepVue. I'll kind of brag a little bit on Ryan's behalf here, but RepVue is an awesome company. I've been using the platform for years. Just the absolute best data in terms of how companies' sales teams are operating and how individual reps are performing at those companies. So if you're a rep and you're listening to this, and you haven't checked out RepVue, 100% recommend. It's an awesome way to figure out what companies are doing really well and what reps at those companies are doing well too. So without further ado, Ryan, pumped to have you on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the very, very kind introduction. And if you are in sales or want to get in sales, give us a look. Hopefully we can play a small role in helping you succeed in your sales career. And so, I appreciate it and excited to chat through sales and startups and, the combination of the two.
Yeah, Ryan, pumped to have you on. I'll share a little story. It's a first touch story. So when Jared and I were initially building out our plan for starting this business, has to have been about a year ago at this point. Ryan was actually the first person that we reached out to for advice on the business. And Ryan's approach to starting RepVue was one that really resonated with me in particular. When he first started, Ryan actually DM'd me on LinkedIn and kind of asked me to sign up. And from there I did, and immediately started getting value out of the RepVue platform. And I thought it was such an awesome way and such a personal way of starting a business, just like personally connecting with reps and sharing the story. So I think that's like an awesome place to start, Ryan. That first kind of few months of like, hey, this is a business that we're starting. I know you were running a consulting company at that point. But just the way that you really got this business off the ground is such an amenable way to start a business. So would love to hear about that 0 to 1 story.
Yeah, happy to. I love hearing that. I reached out to you. I reached out to a lot of people, so I don't remember everybody that I reached out to. But so when I left kind of my last corporate job, which is CRO of a publicly traded software company, my plan was probably to go back to some operator role, leading teams, et cetera, et cetera. Took some time off, which was essentially consulting for some early stage companies here in the Raleigh-Durham area. And I started RepVue as a side project. And the goal was, are we able to deliver unique, valuable insights to users, to salespeople, to make better informed career decisions. And so the way to do that was, what if I built this survey and then had people take the survey and take all the data, aggregate it, and just give it to them, right? So the way you get the data is by completing the survey. So it's a classic give to get model. And, that was the concept. I did it as a side project. Let's build a little survey. Let's do it online. It started to get some traction. I was still not full-time on it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to I literally spent 3 to 4 hours per day reaching out manually on LinkedIn to salespeople. I had a little structure, a cadence. I was like, today is going to be HubSpot day. So we'll go hit 50 people that are sales execs at HubSpot. And the next day is going to be this other company and this other company, to get core companies enough data so that we can publish a profile on our site. So when we talk about 0 to 1, we're not even talking about revenue yet. We're just talking about how can we get enough data so that it's interesting to people, so that the data flywheel is self-sustaining. And so I went from public CRO to LinkedIn SDR in that 12 months, and no problem doing it because I knew it would build the foundation for something that was pretty cool. And then at some point down the road, I decided that I was going to make a bet on RepVue instead of going to try and get a quote unquote real job. But yeah, a lot of people have said to me over the years, "Oh, I got your." This is probably 2020, maybe. I got your outreach back in the day, and I love hearing that.
So when you started like this process of reaching out to folks, right? Obviously, it's a humbling process, but you knew that would turn into the results that you wanted. At what point had you collected enough surveys to decide, like, okay, now we're ready to publish this online and really open up the platform?
When you start a network business like this, it's like a two-sided marketplace. They're really hard to get going, but they're also, once they're going, they're kind of like, it's kind of like a big semi tractor trailer. It's kind of rolling. It's hard to stop, or a cruise ship or something. So we had the first person that does a rating. You think about it like this, right? It's like, well, why would I submit my data? I don't even get anything back. There's nothing there, right? It's just like altruism. And, oh, I know Ryan. I used to work for him. Like, I'll go do it. And so the mechanically, when a company gets 7 ratings, at the time we would need 7 ratings. We'd publish this profile of the data, and like, oh, they're good, their culture's good, but their comp plan's bad, and this is good and this is bad, whatever it is, quota attainment's bad or good or whatever. And we would publish it at 7 ratings. So at the time it was like, well, there's nothing. And then we got 10 companies. Well, my company's not on there. Why would I do it? And then we got 30 companies, and then 80 companies, and 100 companies. So it was really like a slow little kind of flywheel at first. And it's like every time we publish a new company on the platform, and we'd be doing a few a day during some stretch, and every time maybe 10 a week or something, it would just add a little bit of tailwind to the process. And so you get a little bit more data. The amount of data, that's, if anybody's curious in the technical aspect of this, it's called a data network effect, which is the value of the overall data set inherently increases with each new data point that gets added. And for us, like a lot of data network effects, the way to add data into the data network effect is by the amount of value that the data set, delivers. So it is that self-sustaining flywheel. Now we have 12,000 companies published on the site, and we'll be approaching, by the end of this year, I won't say we'll hit it, but we'll be approaching 500,000 submitted ratings.
That's incredible. So as you first started this outreach, and I know that we're in the weeds of kind of the early stuff, and we'll get into some of the later stage stuff in a bit, but as you first started, were you thinking about reaching out to companies that were complementary to each other? For example, you reach out to HubSpot reps, and you know that HubSpot folks are interested in what Klaviyo is doing, so you kind of find these pockets of companies that might be interesting to each other? Or was it kind of just like, all right, this is a company I'm going after today?
Well, we start, we being me for the most part, really had a couple early folks that would help. And we actually did a little bit of like, kind of like advisor type people, and to help do some outreach to, like, in sales execs and people kind of in the community. We would prompt people to rate their current company and a couple of their past companies as well. So in the early days, when it was very manual, people might rate 3 companies or 4. And so you'd get that current company, and then you kind of see where they were before. And so that would build out kind of that next level of like, all right, all these people that work at HubSpot, maybe we got enough ratings for HubSpot. Oh, and then like we got 4 or 5, or we got enough ratings close for this one. So maybe let's target that. So we'd kind of look at what are the most popular big tech inside sales type orgs, like a DocuSign, or of course Salesforce, and all these types of companies, ZoomInfo, whatever. And then we'd kind of have a little bit of a kind of a spider web effect underneath that of like, oh, here's all the companies those people used to work for. And so then we'd have a little bit of a foundation to go say, all right, well, if we go get 2 more ratings for this company over here, then we can publish that one. And then so there's definitely a little bit of a strategy there. And we just track, here's the 15 companies that have 6 ratings. And if we can just get 1 more for each of those today, we can publish 15 new companies in the next 48 hours. Kind of that was the approach that we took. And each one that we'd try and get 1 more, half of them we'd be able to get 2 or 3 ratings in the early days, with the promise maybe of a t-shirt if they do enough ratings.
I was just going to say, so the t-shirt got me. I think I rated Klaviyo over the course of like 6 or 7 months. I think I rated Klaviyo 3 times. And I think on the 4th one, it was a t-shirt. And I actually got the t-shirt early on. That was a great move to get people to rate their existing job like multiple times. So kudos to you on that one. I know I was chasing the shirt and ended up getting it. I think it was a tri-blend, really comfy shirt. So cool. So yep, tri-blend. All right. So kind of shifting a little bit. And I think you mentioned it a bit earlier, but you went from CRO to basically LinkedIn SDR. Like, what kind of things did you have to unlearn as a CRO when you were first starting this business?
Um, I wouldn't say there was a lot of things that I would have to unlearn. I think like really what I mean, I tried to embrace, obviously as a CR, I mean, first of all, like there's no team, right? There's no support, there's no sales ops, there's no subject matter expert, there's no nothing. You're everything, right? So, that was a key part of it, right? And I think it wasn't so much unlearned, but one of the things that I really embraced, and I do this now, like I still say like, all right, I'll be our best SDR. And it's because I have a CEO title, right? And it's not like, it just helps, right? Like, when you were at Klaviyo, if you had a deal or a prospect and your CEO sent a personalized note, that's probably beneficial to the sales process. And I did the same thing, right? When I did my outreach, so when I did my outreach to drive early users, I would literally say, hey, I used to be a CRO of a public software company, and now I'm building this thing to help salespeople enhance and advance their careers. Here's what I'm doing. Take a look at it. If it's of interest, help out. It takes 3 minutes and it's free. And I'm the CEO. And I'm also connecting with you, so we have a personal connection. And I know, you're only allowed to have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, right? So I am totally full and have been for a long time. And so whatever. But so unlearning is probably, I wouldn't say I unlearned, but I just went back and I would just embrace that role, and I still do. I don't know if I did that as much, as a CRO. I mean, we always just like, well, come over the top and lob a note in over the top and this and that. But it was like, it wasn't over the top. It was just direct. Like I was the bottom, the middle, and the top back then. So, I was just using every tool in the toolbox like that I could to drive, those early users and that early data.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's a great strategy, the way that you kind of built it out. So today, RepVue has over 360,000 ratings, like by far the number one place for insights for sales folks and sales teams. Um, what did your plan look like early on for kind of monetizing? Like, did you have a clear plan for like, how am I going to monetize this database? And did that shift over time?
I mean, it has shifted a little, but I would say that the number one thing early on was we felt like the data was really valuable, right? Like understanding the health and performance of sales organizations. We knew that was really valuable data. Our early thought was, and remember, this is like 2019, 2020. We didn't really have any commercial products and we were just kind of getting started. But was if we got all these salespeople, we have all these companies, we have this great data about the salespeople because they filled out a rating and maybe added some stuff in their profile. And then the companies, of course, we have incredible data on, better than anybody else, right? So think about the kind of now AI is the term. We kind of used machine learning and different things, other terms back then, but the ability to programmatically match salespeople and companies was the early thought. And I think that was something we latched onto and embraced early. And we started to get a little bit of traction kind of into late 2021 with hiring and jobs. But then the kind of market totally tanked. We had some other opportunities that came up. So so right now we have two commercial lines of business. We have the recruiting and hiring. And if you're listening to this and you're in sales, there's going to be some amazing like big things this year from that product that are kind of in early beta right now. As it relates to like the, match.com of sales jobs and companies and, AI driven, build your sales team with AI, go to market talent, or not AI talent, but use AI to build your go to market team. And so we're really excited about that. We late 21, early kind of into 22, obviously the hiring market just like totally crashed. Right. And so that was a big problem for us. We were like, all right, this is bad. We had an early kind of late 22, mid 22, late 22. We had some early interest from consultants and investors who were like, hey, we could use your data in our research process, like investors in their research process. There's lots of investors out there that buy a lot of data because all they do all day is research companies and try and learn about companies, right? And it's a big market for that type of data. That was, we knew about that market, but it wasn't really a focus for us early on because the hiring piece we thought was big, and we still think the hiring piece is our biggest opportunity. But when that crashed, we're like, we've got to generate revenue, or we're going to be gone. And salespeople are the resource that they love is going to be gone. And to put a foundational element of this, we never want to charge the salespeople, right? That's one of our kind of core principles, is that we don't want to have to charge the salespeople, and we think we can stay true to that. So hiring stuff going okay, hiring stuff falls off a cliff, research opportunity comes up a little bit more, and so we're kind of focused on both of those markets right now. We spent a little bit more focus on kind of in 2023 and 24 on the research business, which is investors and consultants. And now we've really, after the last 6 months, been investing a lot in the AI-based job matching business from a product standpoint. And that's going to be a little bit more of a PLG model. But
so what did the process look like in terms of tapping into kind of the investor market? Were these folks reaching out to you guys and kind of like requesting this information, or was this something that you had to kind of get the ball rolling on and go reach out to these folks and kind of explain the value of the platform and data that you had?
well, we definitely had to explain the value of the platform and the data, but they did reach out to us. Okay, so several early on knew about us, and some of that was through our investor network and things like that. But then some of them just cold inbound, right? So a lot of big companies that buy data have people whose job it is to go source from companies like RepVue data, go find partners that would be able to, to sell relevant data to them, right? Like, it's important to know if a sales org is well run, right? It's important to, Glassdoor has sold their reviews for years and years, right? I don't know if it's a massive part of their big business, but just getting an understanding of, the sentiment of the people that work there is valuable and important. And so they have people that go find data sets, and not just like ours. You'd laugh at all the different types of data people can buy. Like, oh, there's more smoke coming out of the smokestack in this factory in China, so they're producing more things this year. Or there's 15% more cars in the parking lot at the 15 biggest Walmart supercenters in the Southeast. So that's, whatever. That's a good, and it's Black Friday, so they're going to have a good earnings report on Walmart is on in Q4. So there's just all kinds of data. They came to us, we embraced it. It took us about a year to get our act together to be able to sell it, from a data structure and a lot of different standpoints. But now we see that likely as an ongoing core part of our business in the future, kind of indefinitely. But we're super excited about, once hiring gets ramped back up, hopefully for a lot of companies, that to be a huge long-term opportunity for us.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point about, like, there's so many interesting pieces of data that folks can use, whether it's to analyze an investment or even for a sales team to use to understand who to reach out to, why and when. And it's actually interesting, like early on at First Touch, and we still do this today, like we'll go through RepVue and kind of figure out which companies have good inbound lead flow and which companies don't have great inbound lead flow. And that can help us prioritize what companies we want to reach out to, or what companies we think would be valuable to tap into. So it's so interesting that I think a lot of people look at kind of the standard data, right? Oh, who's getting funding or who's hiring? And it's like, there's so many more interesting and compelling ways to reach out and figure out what companies might need a business that people just like are not thinking about regularly. So that's a great point there. And I think an awesome business model that you guys have created. On the hiring side, would love to learn a little bit more about that piece too, right? Because you've got reps that are kind of filling out these reviews. And I know a ton of friends of mine and even myself, like looking at reviews all the time, like, oh, this could be an interesting company to work at. The other side of it is there's a lot of really great reps that are on RepVue now that may be looking to make a jump or looking to join a new company. Yeah, would love to learn a little bit more about kind of the hiring piece.
So really, there's never been a company, a business that has solved like programmatic matching at scale for companies, right? They've done it for personal, like dating type apps and things like that. And the reason that works really well, presumably, I think I was probably off the market before the dating apps really came about, is that two counterparties will spend a lot of time filling out a lot of information, right, to make that match happen. Salespeople and like they just don't really do that in the business world. Like salespeople don't want to fill out some massive thing, right? Some 20-minute survey. And then companies, and the problem is companies are also just going to, I don't want to say they're going to lie, but it's just going to be selling, right? So what we're doing is taking a fact, not that humans won't do that too in their personal life, but in terms of how tall they are, something like that. But companies, with the RepVue data, we have, third-party data matching to a user with their data, and the user data. Really, all we need, fill out a rating. If you can, there's a couple different small questions in the candidate profile that you can fill out, or just upload your resume. But it's things like, what do we know about the company? We know that, the average deal size is $45,000. We know that the sales cycle length is this. We know that you're selling to head of marketing or head of sales. We know that it's almost unlimited what we know about 30,000 companies, right? We know all that information. And now with the onset of AI, right, all the company needs to do is have their job description. Just give us a link to the job description, so we know who the company is. And not only do we know all the metadata about the company, we can extract all the information from the job description of years experience needed, types of, just a whole, whatever you could, envision is in the job description. And then it's like, in seconds, it's like, here's the top 100 candidates and here's 10 that are the best fit candidates, right? And then click to connect to that human being right now. They'll get on your calendar link. All, and so that's the one-way matching. The other way matching for users, that part is pretty much built and done. It's in beta now with a number of customers. And so on the user side, kind of the flip side, which is almost complete, as soon as you submit your rating, and we want you to also there's a few things in your profile that would be helpful to fill out too, but it's like a 30-second thing, not a 15-minute thing. We will automatically match you kind of the other way. And so there's like a mutual opt-in of company and user, and we just make that connection. So what our belief is in the future is that with all the onset of AI and tools, and information is so readily acceptable, there's no need to do anything else than your normal, go about your normal business, and you should be connected with the right opportunities. Go to RepVue if you have a profile, flag that you're either actively looking or passively looking. And even if you're passively looking, you will get fed, potential things that we think are a great fit. And then in time, you can also filter out, like, I only want to see this, whether it's comp or whether it's these 10 companies or whatever it is. So there's just, the bounds are almost unlimited as to what we can do based on the data that we have, which we can talk about moats if you want. But in the future of AI, there's not many moats. Many of the moats are going away. Technology is not a moat, right? But data is a moat. RepVue's brand is a moat. Things like that. Scale and distribution are moats. So we're pumped about the data product. We think we're not really even selling it. We're getting many inbounds weekly, like probably several daily inbounds about it, even though we're not kind of actively. So we're just kind of slowly taking on beta clients, and letting them kind of bang on that early system that we built.
Yeah, I mean, so the data is super valuable in RepVue, and I think you're right. Like, I think the possibilities are unlimited. I know, like, from my experience, right, it can be overwhelming to look at other companies and other jobs, especially as a sales rep, because so much of this information is gated. And right, to go through an interview process and you're like, everything sounds good on paper, but it's really hard to know, like, does this actually translate? And so, like, the way that most reps do this, and I did this a bit, is like, I would reach out to people at the company and try to learn or talk to them, like, about their experience. But the way that RepVue democratizes this information, there's a couple of things that I think are particularly valuable for sales reps and for any AEs that are kind of listening in on this. A product market fit is probably the number one thing that I would look at, right? So culture, obviously important. Comp is super important. Number of people hitting quota. But product market fit is like, are you going to be swimming upstream in deals, or are you going to be swimming downstream? And so just such a valuable piece of information to be able to see. So, like, kudos to you for including that as one of the core pillars of information for reps to be able to leverage. So with that in mind, right, like, you guys have grown a lot since 2020. There's, again, over 360,000 ratings now, 30,000 plus companies. As a team, you guys have grown, and you've transitioned from you kind of being, as you mentioned, the bottom, middle, and top, and you're now starting to scale towards like a a sales led motion, right? It seems like you're kind of in that transition period. So would love to learn about what that transition period has looked like for you. And if you have any advice for companies or folks that are maybe going through something in a similar capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I would say um, that as a founder, I have a sales background, and that's not that common. I mean, it's certainly the minority, whether it's 20% or 15%. And so I have different issues and challenges, maybe as it relates to code and development and product and things like that. Although I have a fantastic team now, on the development side and the product side. Um, and so what's my strength? My strength is selling, right? And so how far can we take it, right? At about 2 million in ARR, not to give away the farm, it wasn't that long ago. I decided that it's time to kind of start scaling it, right? And building a team, right? A professional kind of sales organization, right? And basically it was me, and there's always one other resource that was selling with me for the first couple of years, but there was no concept of team. It's just a couple people just trying to sell. And so last fall hired a CRO, somebody that, and this is kind of a cheat code, but somebody that I worked with for 10 years, right? That was kind of like my number two person the whole time when I was a CRO and VP of sales. And before that even, and after I left, they took over a CRO, a year or two later, at the last software company where we were at. And he and I obviously retained a very good relationship and said, hey, I'm building this out. Like, I'm going to hire some salespeople. Do you want to come be the person that builds that out? And so, yeah, it was a great fit. So for me, there was a lot of trust involved there. It's hard being the founding, like the founder who is the salesperson, like who does sales, like having, the needing to kind of start letting go of more of that. Right. And so that's the process that we're in right now. We've recently hired 2 senior account executives at RepVue over the last few months. And they're experienced at what they do and experienced at the products that they sell, and we sell similar products. And so, we're getting them trained up on everything RepVue. But for me, it's a different challenge than a lot of tech founders. The tech founder challenge is like, I don't know what the heck is going on, what I'm doing. They need to have somebody in there that's almost like on a founding team that's able to sell, because it's, the founder has to do the selling for some period of time. I think probably we were, we started building out this team kind of post 2 million ARR. That's probably later than some, because I'm very comfortable. I'm always comfortable doing it. It's just, one person that's also the CEO wouldn't be able to grow the business probably as fast as we need without building out that team. So our investors were very happy about us, building out and scaling a sales team. Everybody's journey is different, but that's kind of how, I'm happy to dive into any of that in more detail and timing of all that and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the process of what it looks like to get, new AEs ramped up. Obviously, you have a ton of sales experience from your CRO days, even before then, as a rep and obviously building out RepVue. But like, what did that process look like for you of identifying the right fit from your kind of founding account executive team and getting them ramped up?
Yeah. Couple things. Number one, I just spent 5 or 10 minutes talking about this recruiting product that we built. So we hired 2 senior account executives that are a great fit. Never posted the job on LinkedIn, never posted a job on Indeed, never posted a job on our website, and I never posted once publicly on LinkedIn or Twitter X that I was hiring. Right? So how the heck do we do that? Right? We did it just because I just punched a couple buttons in our back end and it spit out a list of 100 candidates. That's it. And we hired, like, the 2 people that we hired before RepVue, I had never met them, they'd never worked for me before in any capacity. Paul, our CRO, they had never worked for Paul in any capacity before. He had never met them. That's how it worked, right? And so that was very easy and very good. We knew who's the buyer persona that we're selling to, what's the years of experience that we're selling to, and even like, hey, input a list of like 15 companies that would be good, like, that we ideally want to recruit from those 15. Boom, here's 100 candidates. Awesome. We hired 2 of those, the best 2. And so that's like kind of the mechanical way of hiring. I'm a process person. And our new CRO, Paul, is also a process person. So when somebody starts as an account executive, even as the first account executive or the second account executive, Here's your 195 accounts, day one. Here's your comp plan, day one. Salesforce, totally clean, day one. All your accounts are assigned day one in Salesforce. Here's the 4 or 5 or 6, tools that we would consider using on day one, right? Now, this is kind of these are both focused right now on our data product, not our hiring product. So it's a larger kind of sale, and it's mostly just named accounts, right? So there's not like a lot of spray and pray or any of that kind of stuff necessarily. A lot of relationships too, people that have our 2 account execs have existing relationships. But we want people to come in and know, like, this is even though we're a very small company, this is a well-oiled sales machine, a well-oiled sales engine. Data is clean, CRM is set up. We've got all these other tools that you might need that are in place already. Whether it's call recording, everything you might need, right? And the biggest thing I think is just the account assignments, right? Like here, is 190, and then there's another 400 that's kind of the rotation, and then we've got when stuff comes inbound, how do we manage that? All that totally on lockdown, even as a 2-person company. And that's the advantage of being a founder that is a salesperson, which is me, and then having another CRO. And we have another CRO that's our head of biz dev and marketing, Jordan. He was a CRO as well. Our head of product, Josh, was a couple years as an Oracle sales rep, our VP of product. He spent 2 years or something like that as an Oracle early in his career. So when I was hiring him, I was like, this is actually like really, really good. Our DNA is that stuff, right? So we're about that life, as they say. And now we just got to execute.
That's great. I love it. So you're eating your own dog food and hiring your first 2 reps with the beta product that's about to come out relatively soon. That's a pretty good testament to the effectiveness right there. So how effectively have these reps been able to onboard? It sounds like you kind of put everything in line for them to jump in, and you got the business to a really pretty substantial level of revenue. I'd say a lot of founders probably hire a sales team a lot earlier than that. So I'm curious, like, how's it been in their first few months onboarding with you guys?
Yeah, so both started after the new year, so it's been 2 months or less, and so just some of the stuff that we did, right? Particularly over the last probably 3 to 5 months, we tried to record every call we could. Some customers are sensitive to it, depending on what industry you're selling to, actually, and some of our prospects don't. But we recorded a ton of calls, right? And then we tag like the top calls, like here's 12 calls. Go listen to these 12 calls your first week, right? It'd be like intro/discovery call set, then like kind of the more kind of demo type call, like later stage call, like we bucket them into those types of things, right? So and they kind of knew, so they knew what the process was. And then the next level is, all right, you're listening to calls. The next level, you're sitting in on calls, right? So like, whether it was me and I had to get Paul, our CRO, he was there like 4 months in advance. So this process happened with him first, me doing it, me leading it. And then we have these 2 new folks on the team, and then they would sit in, and whether it was me, sometimes Paul would do it, either one of us could do it. We would lead the calls and they would listen. So it's shadowing. So it's like absorbing, shadowing, and then like the first call is the easier call. I'd say it's easier. It's maybe not less important, is the intro call. All right, why don't you lead that? But I'll be there and I'll jump in and do, if something is missed or there's a question that's, nuanced or something, I'll handle that. So we're kind of at that phase. And then as throughout the thread of all that, which is also like, hey, do mock calls for us as well. So Paul would have a mock call process for the 2 new. So that whole thread, and we're kind of at the point of now kind of at the comfort level of having them do solo stuff, right? And I'm sure, like any great salespeople, they want to do solo stuff as well and generate pipeline and things like that. But that was kind of the process that we've used. And just one last comment, right? I'm the best SDR, and anytime you want me on a call, I want to be on the call. If it's a sales call, like that's what I do for a living, right? That's that's what we do. So like, just add me now. Maybe now I don't have to do all the follow up, and I don't have to, I don't have to manage the op. But if you want to just put me on there and let me sell something, then let's do it, right? Like, leverage me as your best asset. But that's kind of the process. Was listen, learn, shadow, mock, and then pitch.
Yeah. So first of all, I think so many good takeaways there. takeaways that I think we can implement at First Touch as we continue to scale. And like for companies, that are listening to this, like that process of cleaning up CRM, getting recordings in line, and like creating a real process makes such a difference for sales reps to come on and start crushing as effectively and quickly as possible. I talk to sales reps pretty much all day, every day. We have like over 2,200 sales reps on our platform, and you wouldn't believe like how many middle-sized to big companies don't have a process like that in place. And like we see, because we're working with them, how long it takes for them to get ramped up and for them to start contributing to the business. Those moves that you're making, if you can cut down ramping time from 3-4 months to 1.5 2 months, like makes such a material impact on the business. So it's awesome to hear kind of the process that you've gone through of building it out. And I'm taking notes over here for ourselves as well. Cool. So, with that in mind, we've covered a lot of ground. This has been really, really awesome. If you kind of look back on the business, like maybe you could share a quick story. Were there any points in time where you're like, man, like we feel like we need to change something, or we feel like we need to move in a different direction? And maybe it was when the hiring, the hiring stuff started to collapse in 21. But I'm curious if there was any moments where you're like directionally, you're like, look, we need to go in a 30-degree angle this way or this way.
Yeah, that's the one, right? We were feeling pretty good about ourselves. We had some good customers that were hiring, and it's like not only are they now not hiring, like, and that's our value our value proposition, particularly in the early days, was like, it's not that expensive of a platform. It's new. It's getting a lot of traction from salespeople. So our leads were coming from talent people saying, "Hey, I had a bunch of candidates mention RepVue during the process. Like, what are you guys doing? What's going on?" And so we'd sell them something, and it wasn't that expensive, frankly. And so the ROI, kind of like the path to ROI, was not like crazy high. Like we didn't have to like jump over a ton of hoops or jump through a ton of hoops. So not only were people stopped hiring, but they were firing people, right? So and really the value, like if we knew that like if we hired 2 or 3 people during the course of a 12-month term, they'd probably renew. Like it's not a huge expense, and we're helping them in the brand. And so so they're firing people. We're losing customers. Like this is bad. Like we're not going to be able to generate new. Like we're going to run out of money, basically, right? And so we knew we had the other products that we could sell. We just hadn't focused on them, just because we were focused on the hiring product. And so we said we have to go do this. And so the good news was our data is structured very cleanly, just by a matter of course. I'm not saying I did anything smart. I would say Jeff, our head of engineering, is smarter than me. So like the data is structured very, very good. So we were able to turn quickly. And I don't call it a pivot as much as like layering on another product. And this hiring product is still there. It's still going to be a great thing for RepVue. But that was a really tough time for us for a few months. Luckily, we were able to land a couple of pretty big deals pretty quickly that built some momentum for us. And the cost of sales low, CAC, was low, as they say. So that for us, that was a really big milestone in our business, was layering on a second product for the consultants and investors to consume data about sales orgs. So we might not be here. RepVue might be one of the many potentially many good companies that are just in the graveyard of weren't able to make it work. But I'm glad we are.
Yeah, I think it's a great takeaway, because I think a lot of early stage businesses either go through a product pivot or a go-to-market pivot. And I think it's important to note, like, there's a lot of different directions that you can go in. And sometimes it's just repackaging the data and finding a different customer. And sometimes it's adding a small feature that solves a pain point that maybe the platform you have currently can't do, but you're very close to being able to do. So, I think there's a lot of talk about, then we made this big product pivot, but on the go-to-market side, there's a lot that you can do there too. And I think sometimes overlooked, whether it be the market that you're selling into or just changing the functionality a little bit to fit a different use case. So Ryan, this has been an awesome pod. Have learned a ton from you. Appreciate all the advice and kind of guidance that you've given to Jared and I throughout the course of us building First Touch as well. But just want to thank you for coming on today. I think like for whoever's listening to this, I think just so many good takeaways to absorb.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I love watching your journey with Jared, and convinced y'all are going to do big things there, and happy to participate, and hopefully somebody took something away from this that they can use in their startup too.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.